Can you believe it's been 25 years since this film came out? What happens when an ordinary janitor who has a mullet hairdo, acid wash jeans, and a dream to find the parents that he lost when he was just 8 years old at the Grand Canyon? Well, that's easy. You got this film right here. But does it still deserve the hate it got after 25 years, bad reviews and what have you? Or can I get the broom, the mop, and whatever cleaning I might get and bring this film to justice? Find out as I review Joe Dirt. This is Big D's Entertainment Rankings and Reviews. So, greetings, my fellow YouTubers, and welcome again to Big D's Entertainment Rankings and Reviews. I'm the Big D, and this time around I bring to you a review of the 2001 adventure comedy flick Joe Dirt, released by Columbia, directed by Denise Gordon in her feature film directorial debut, starring David Spade in the title role, along with Dennis Miller, Christopher Walken, Adam Beach, Brian Thompson, Brittany Daniel, Jamie Presley, Eric Persullivan, and Kid Rock. Spade co-wrote the film's screenplay with Fred Wolf and was produced by Robert Simmons and Adam Sandler. The plot revolves around the poor young man who at first seems to be a loser. As he travels in search of his parents, his finer qualities are increasingly revealed. And he ends up with a new family of close friends, people who, well, he's helped and who respect him. The film was released on this day, April 11th, 2001. Henceforth, today is the film's 25th anniversary. Although the reviews were awful, this film was a modest financial success, becoming a cult favorite. Well, let's get into the story. Joe Dirt is a janitor at 98.6 at KXLA, an LA based radio station, and is brought before a shock jock named Xander Kelly who speaks of his life story while on the air. Joe reveals that as a baby he had a mullet wig installed because the top of his skull had never formed. At age 8, he was left behind by his parents and sister at the Grand Canyon and thus doesn't know his real surname. After growing up in a series of foster homes, Joe ran away until he arrived in Silverton, a small chicken town in Oregon. There he met Brandy and her dog Charlie and became a target of jealousy from Robbie, this town bully, who also vied for Brandy's affection. After Brandy's alcoholic father shoots Charlie dead after a hunting accident that costs him his leg, Joe decides to try to find his parents. Please stand by. Sorry about that. I'm sorry my eyes are giving out on me. Apologies. He details his adventures across the country, including discovering what he believed to be a meteorite, only to discover it was solid excrement buildup that fell from a commercial airplane. He inadvertently took a hot air balloon to North Dakota, where he took a job at an oil well while making enemies with a wildcatter. He even made friends with Kicking Wing, an unsuccessful Native American fireworks salesman in New Mexico, while acquiring a list of names for those on the 1979 Grand Canyon tour. Afterward, he met a young woman named Jill while working on the fairground, and while dating her, he learned about her time being separated from her parents, assuming it was his sister. But, well, in Indiana, Joe has an encounter with a serial killer named Buffalo Bob, who is parodying the lotion scene from The Silence of the Lambs. After Buffalo Bob is arrested, this event brought Joe unwanted attention from the media, but helps his search. Yep. Joe discovered his roots started in Louisiana, where he went to next. There he took a job as a high school janitor working with Clem Dorr, a former mobster in the Witness Protection Program. Clem rescues students after a mustard gas explosion and informs the media Joe was the hero. Joe then revealed Clem to be the hero, unaware that the mafia wanted his head. Clem managed to survive the encounter and tipped Joe on the vehicle that his parents used, the Rambler wagon, to be extremely rare. While traveling on further, he came across an alligator farm and met the owner, Charlene. Looking to make money, he was hired to be an alligator wrangler for the audiences. After one encounter with an alligator in which he landed wrong, he had an epiphany about his little sister yelling at Joe about why his last name was Dirt and not his real surname, Nunemaker. Upon realizing his last name, Joe discovers the address of his old family home and he travels to Baton Rouge only to find that they moved away many years prior. Listening to Joe's story, both Xander and the radio audience initially find him an object of scorn. But Joe's kindness and optimistic outlook on life win them over. Eventually, Joe lands the janitorial job at the radio station where he recounts how he gave up the search and returned to Silverton to be with Brandy. However, Robbie informed him that he and Brandy were getting married and that she found Joe's parents but instructed him not to tell Joe. Xander calls Brandy to find out why, and she tells Joe his parents were killed the day they were at the Grand Canyon. She pleads with Joe to return to Silverton. Upset by the news, Joe stays in LA. Now for the ending. As always, you know the procedure. You have 5 seconds to stop this video at once. Go to the description box below and fast forward to the time below. If you've seen this movie already, please continue. Okay, you've been warned. Joe is unaware that he has become a media sensation, but he quickly discovers his newfound fame. An appearance on TRL results in a phone call from a woman claiming to be Joe's mother. And thus he meets his parents living in Semi Valley, California, and he discovers that they intentionally abandoned him and that they only reconnected with him to boost their sales of clown figurines. Joe storms out, officially cutting ties with his parents. He intends to commit suicide, but Brandy arrives and finally admits that she lied to him about his parents being dead because she had to protect him from them, and they agreed after she found out what horrible people they were. Brandy revealed that Robbie lied about the engagement, expressing her love, and convinces Joe to come home with her. But he suffers a head injury after a police officer lassos and accidentally causes him to fall off a bridge, hitting his head while springing back up. Joe wakes up in Brandy's house, surrounded by his friends, Kicking Wing, who reveals that thanks to Joe, he now owns 30 successful fireworks stands. Clem, who is now under the name of Gert B. Frobe, and Charlene, who sold the alligator farm after losing her thumb and middle finger, except her ring finger on her left hand, to one of the alligators, who are now engaged. Brandy reveals that she got Joe a dreadlock wig following his head operation, has retrieved his Hemi, and she has a new dog that Charlie fathered. As they prepare to take a ride in Joe's Hemi, Robbie arrives and tells Joe that no one wants him in Silvertown. Clem threatens Robbie and exclaims that they are Joe's family. Robbie challenges Joe to a race, and Joe leaves him in the dust as Robbie's car malfunctions and breaks down. As they drive away, Xander dedicates a song to Joe on the radio. End of story. Please stand by. Okay, so what did I think of Joe Dirt? Well, I have to say this is one twisted but pretty darn funny film and what have you. I really appreciated it for what it had to offer. I liked some of the fun humor and what have you, and all that stuff. I mean, David Spade does one hell of a job in playing the titular character. He is definitely a funny character. While despite the negative reception the critics gave it, the film did well, becoming a modest financial success, going on to make $31 million worldwide on its $17.7 million budget. But the reviews, like I said, was terrible, as it sits at a mere 9% on Rotten Tomatoes, where they say if you fall within the target audience of the film, you may find it funny. Otherwise, the jokes will seem like a tired retread. Metacritic has a measly 20 score, and audiences surveyed by CinemaScore gave this an average B minus. Ebert and Roper weren't thrilled with this. Roper criticized the film for being too predictable and strained and said that the radio station storyline was absurd. As for Ebert, he praised, agreed on all that, but however, praised Spade for taking on a different role than he is normally associated with, and added that his performance was convincing despite the film's other shortcomings. Well, that may be, but it's still, some of it still was funny. Ebert also included the film as one of his most hated films of all time under the category of alleged comedy, saying that what movies, including this film, often do not understand is that the act of being buried in crap is not in and of itself funny. Still, years later, it has become a cult classic and it became one of the most watched films on the streaming service Crackle, leading to the development of a sequel which came out 14 years later. Which I'm sorry to disappoint y'all, I have yet to see the sequel, which is Joe Dirt 2 Beautiful Loser. But rest assured, I'm gonna try and talk about, well, check it out sooner or later. But like this also got this big time. After this, Spade worked on a pilot for TBS for an animated series, but however, it never materialized. Now, I'm gonna say it just had a ton of craziness and what have you, but the real good thing about it was its soundtrack, which featured a ton of music. Featured, well, now there's some that were added to include on the film's soundtrack released under Sony's Legacy Recordings, including Leonard Skinner's Sweet Home Alabama, Argent's Hold Your Head Up, the Bachman Turnover Drives, You Ain't Seen Nothing Yet. Let's see, Roller by April Wine, Rocky Mountain Way by Joe Walsh, Who Do You Love by Lonesome George himself, George Thorogood and the Destroyers, and If You Want My Love by Cheap Trick, which plays at the beginning of the closing credits. There's lots of other films you'll hear along the way, but however, I'm not gonna mention all of them because there were only 12 songs made onto the soundtrack, and there's tons of other songs that weren't on here, unfortunately. But nevertheless, I found that to be pretty good. Waddy Wachtel did the film's score. Very good, and of course, this guy worked as a session musician for many artists, including Linda Ronstadt, Stevie Nicks, Kim Carnes, Randy Newman, John Bon Jovi, James Taylor, Iggy Pop, heck, even Miranda Lambert. Yeah. Can you believe that? I can't. Now, the film was directed by Denise Gordon in her feature film debut. Now, of course, Gordon was already well known for directing episodes of various shows and what have you that included Party of Five, Dawson's Creek, Ally McBeal, Grounded for Life, plus lots of other shows. After this, she would go on to direct What a Girl Wants with Amanda Bynes and New York Med with the Olsen twins. Which even though I wish she would have done that. And besides that, I liked What a Girl Wants a whole lot more. Like that film, Joe Dirt had become a guilty pleasure of mine. I will admit it does have some real twisted bits, but nevertheless, it proved to be comical and pretty darn funny and what have you. Especially when he mentions all the rock bands and what have you. I gotta give him credit for that. Anyway, David Spade does the titular character of Joseph Joe Dirt. He's great. This is one of his best films in what I've seen of his. Eric Purcellman played the young version of him. Playing Brandy is Brittany Daniel. And the first time I've seen her, something she did after she and her sister Cynthia were seen on Sweet Valley High. Her performance as Brandy was just so wow. Of course, Brittany Daniel would also later go on to appear on the show The Game on the CW. Let's see, M. Beach just kicking wing. Yeah, he's a pretty funny character. Christopher Walken playing Anthony Banday, aka Clemdor, now Gert B. Frobe. Pretty funny. Jamie Presley played Jill. Yeah. Actually, later that same year, she would appear in another film that got this that Columbia released, and that was not another teen movie. Kid Rock, fresh after he made it big with his Devil will Without Cost album did so well, and of course he had already, of course, the same year he had released the album Cocky, which was pretty darn, which had some pretty good stuff on there. But anywho, yeah, cool to see him in that. We even have appearances from others. Rosanna Arquette plays Charlene, but she was uncredited. Joe Don Baker as Brandy's father, who was uncredited. Yeah. Let's see. Who else was in there? Let's see. We have Caroline Aaron as Mrs. Nunemaker, and Fred Ward as Mr. Nunemaker. Yeah. Brian Thompson as Buffalo Bob. Yeah. Actually, we do have a little appearance by Blake Clark, reprising his role from the Water Boy, his Water Boy character, Farmer Fran. That was pretty comical. And there's lots of other appearances from him. Hamilton Camp, Tyler Maine. Oh, many others. Uncredited appearances from Kevin Nealon as a greasy mechanic and Carson Daly as himself. So overall, Joe Dirt, I feel like it's an underrated film. I appreciate that. While this film may have gotten hated on, I don't hate it. I actually like it. It's pretty comical. Some of it's pretty gross out and what have you, but this is my kind of gross out film and what have you. Well, considering it's not grossly gross because it's a PG-13 rated film, not. Well, now you get the point, all right? So would I recommend this film after I did what I could to defend this? I could defend most of this in my view. It may have just a few issues, but even so, it's still a pretty fun comic film, and David Spade steals the show. So would I recommend Joe Dirt? I'd say give it a one-time watch. You might like it. Definitely. What did you think of Joe Dirt? Let me know in the comment section below. If you like this video, consider clicking the like button, subscribe, and be a part of the Big D Nation. Continue to help support my channel and rest, and also click the bell for notifications. Please stand by again. Okay, join me next time when I bring to you a re-review of the SpongeBob SquarePants movie. So if you like this, consider checking out my reviews for some of these other films that David Spade did. Here's two of them where he teamed with Adam Sandler and Kevin James and Chris Rock. First, check out my review of Grown Ups in the upper left hand corner, or its sequel, Grown Ups 2, in the upper right hand corner. Or if you'd like another crazy film with a little certain twist in it, check out my review of The Water Boy in the bottom left hand corner. And the bottom right hand corner is the button you can click to subscribe. If you like rankings and reviews on movies, TV, music, video games, etc., then I'm your guy. Thanks for watching. Until next time, I'm the Big D saying, see ya.